I am here. I'm going to leave that door open. Nonetheless, good evening. Oh, um, happy Tuesday. Let's see here if I can get this set up. Check my sound. Okay. All right. Camera. Camera. Oh, that's better. A lot better. Good evening. Good evening. Happy Tuesday. It is 8:26. Not as late as last week. Getting I'm getting to a point where I'm like, okay, gotta set a certain schedule. Um, but I'm grateful to be here. Um, ready to jump into Nehemiah 5 and turn it down some. Ready to get into Nehemiah 5 and catch up on a little bit on what I read last week, and we'll see how it goes. Nehemiah 5 is, I kind of breezed through it, so don't know that I would be on here as definitely not as long as last week, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, I think everything is good. I have my Bible here, got my notes here. Let me just check one more thing before I hop into this thing. Let's see. Hopefully I have a good signal because let me check it out. Let me check it out. I wonder why that's not working. I'm checking my signal here, and I believe it's okay, but if it isn't, I'll find out when I watch it back. Hopefully it is okay. Let's see. Okay. All right, it looks okay from what I have here. So I think we're good. Okay. Whew. All right, so I'm going to start with a little bit of what we covered last week, what we read last week. So last week, Nehemiah 4, I read from, I believe I read from verse 1 all the way through verse 23, which is the last verse. So last week, Nehemiah and the builders were building, and they had the threats from their enemies. Their what do they call them in this? The King James Version called them adversaries. But the people who were just not pleased, they were angry with what Nehemiah and the builders were doing, which is building up the walls and gates of Jerusalem, rebuilding the walls and gates that had been burned down and destroyed. And so the more progress that Nehemiah, the builders, the Jews made with building this wall, the angrier their adversaries became. So in chapter 4, we highlighted that, well, one of the takeaways that I had was just that, number one, Nehemiah prayed. Like from the moment that he heard Sanballat and the Arabs, the Tobiah, the Ammonites, whoever all those people were, the moment he heard that they were mocking the builders' work, saying, if a fox climbed up on the wall, it would just fall down. He prayed to God, Lord, you see we have haters. Take care of them because they have insulted the builders. And so he went to God, which is in true Nehemiah fashion. That is like that's one of the things that is consistent throughout this book, is that Nehemiah approaches God in prayer often, and he continues to do that. And I really appreciate that. And so when he does it, I try to underline it or highlight it, because it's a reminder for me to just be constant in prayer. So that was one of the things that happened. And then also we know that some of the people in Judah, along with some of the other Jewish people who lived near their enemies, came back and was telling the builders in Nehemiah that, it's just a lot of rubble. We can't finish this work. The workers are tired. The enemy said that they were going to come at every corner. They're going to attack. And so repeatedly they were coming to Nehemiah and the builders, the way I'm reading it, to tell them, pretty much giving them all these, excuses as to why they can't continue on with the work. But also we learned that they were really being sent by God as well to forewarn Nehemiah and the builders that, these opposers, they were angry and just mocking you at first, but now they're making plans to come and fight and start trouble with y'all. So once Nehemiah learned that, he went ahead and told everybody to armor up. Everybody got the weapons, the swords, the bows, whatever they had. He put people in different places along the wall because they were stretched out. This is a huge job that they're doing, building this wall up again, rebuilding this wall. And so he spread them out over the wall, and he had everyone armor up and get ready to fight. And so one of the highlights from last week was when Nehemiah looked around at the people after they had heard that their enemies were going to try and come and attack them. He told everyone to come together, get your weapons, and then in verse 14 of chapter 4, he says, "Then I looked around and stood up and said to the important men, the leaders, and the rest of the people, don't be afraid of them. Remember the Lord, who is great and powerful. Fight for your brothers, your sons and daughters, your wives and your homes." And so that was a highlight for me, that I, underlined, heavy, bold, underlined, like, remember the Lord. Don't be afraid of them. Don't let them run you off. Don't let them deter you from doing the work that like we know that God called us to do this work. And so Nehemiah took that moment not only to be practical and say, everybody got to have a weapon, everybody, but also to encourage them. We have weapons, but we have the Lord. We have the Lord. We have the Lord. Remember the Lord, who is great and powerful. That is who is on our side. That is who's going to fight for us. And so he also said later again in the text that he said, our God will fight for us. That was in verse 20. And so that was, hi, Amira. So that was one of the takeaways that really settled on me last week. And then also we learned that the opposition, the enemies, the adversaries, they decided not to come and attack once they found out the Jews were aware that they were planning to come and start trouble and fight. And so they decided not to come. So that was the Lord, deterring them. And what else was for? I had a couple more takeaways. Let me see. I don't want to miss anything before I move on. Oh yes. So one of the what towards the end of the chapter, it just highlights again that how even though the enemy didn't come into attack, they ended up not coming. It still emphasized that Nehemiah told everyone to stand guard, like to always carry their weapons. It said that like each person carried their weapon, even when they were going to drink water. Like nobody took it off, and they had he had called for everyone who was living outside of Jerusalem, the builders. Everybody needs to be staying in Jerusalem from now on. Like we need to have everybody here to help with this work, but also to help secure this work. So he had half of the people building, and then the other half were standing guard watching, and then they would switch. And it says that they worked like this in verse 21. So we continue to work with half the men holding spears from sunrise till the stars came out. And so they were consistent in this work, committed, but they were also careful. They had guards standing watching, and they kept their weapons on. They were ready. And so that's when I went on last week. I went on a whole tangent about readiness and the whole armor of God, and keeping our weapons on. And so I will not go that way again tonight. But that's what that was pretty much the gist of Nehemiah 4. And now I'm going to go ahead and read 5. I'm going. So let's get my notes on track here. Nehemiah. Okay, yes, this is where we're at. All right, so Nehemiah 5, and of course I'm reading in the New Century Version, and let me see here. This is 19 verses, so this is a short chapter. So I'm reading Nehemiah 5, and this is 1 through 19. I'm going to try to read it. I'm going to read it, but I'll stop and pause, throughout. And I might go into the King James Version or the New Living Translation. I might switch in between those as well, just to cross-reference. Yeah. Okay, let's go. So starting with verse 1, let me check my sound. Okay, sounds good. So I'm double check before I get into this. Okay, so starting with verse 1 of Nehemiah 5, it says, the men and their wives complained loudly. Actually, let me go back. We need a little context. So let me just read the last few verses of 4, and then I'll go into 5. So 21 says of chapter 4, it says, so we continue to work with half the men holding spears from sunrise till the stars came out. At that time, I also said to the people, let every man and his helper stay inside Jerusalem at night. They can be our guards at night and workmen during the day. Neither I, my brothers, my workers, nor the guards with me ever took off their clothes, their weapons. Each person carried his weapon, even when he went for water. That was the final verse of chapter 4, going into chapter 5. It says, the men and their wives complained loudly against their fellow Jews. Some of them were saying, we have many sons and daughters in our families. To eat and stay alive, we need grain. Others were saying, we are borrowing money against our fields, vineyards, and homes to get grain because there is not much food. And still others were saying, we are borrowing money to pay the king's taxes on our fields and vineyards. We are just like our fellow Jews, and our sons are like their sons. But we have to sell our sons and daughters as slaves. Some of our daughters have already been sold, but there is nothing we can do because our fields and vineyards already belong to other people. That was verse 1 through 5 of Nehemiah 5. And so it's basically saying this is just the people in the land, the Jews, they are complaining. And when it says they're complaining loudly, I understand that they're complaining loudly loudly enough for Nehemiah to either catch wind of it or for him to like actually directly hear them. Like they're bringing their complaints directly to him. One of the two. They're complaining about the fact that they need food. Like they either don't have enough food. Some people have had to borrow against their own property, their own assets, like their fields, vineyards, homes. They've had to borrow against what they own to just to get enough money to be able to do what they need to do. And then there's some people who have because they've suffered or struggled with paying the taxes, the king's tax, on their fields and vineyards, they've now had to start selling off like their sons and daughters. Well, excuse me, hold on. Yeah, the sons and daughters as slaves to be able to pay for the king's tax on their fields, which, by the way, they don't even own anymore, kind of, because they've already borrowed against the fields. So they're borrowing against the fields, and they're borrowing against the fields to the point where now they don't have anything else to borrow off of. So now they have to sell their children as slaves just to be able to make it, like make ends meet and pay the tax and eat or whatever to live. And so they're really struggling, and so they're complaining about this. And so going into verse 6, it says, when I heard their complaints, this is Nehemiah speaking. When I heard their complaints about these things, I was very angry. After I thought about it, I accused the important people and the leaders. You are charging your own brothers too much interest. So I called a large meeting to deal with them. I said to them, as much as possible, we have bought freedom for our fellow Jews who had been sold to the foreigners. Now you are selling your fellow Jews to us. The leaders were quiet and had nothing to say. In the NLT version, it says, I love this verse. In NLT, verse 7 says, oh, y'all, this is not Nehemiah. That's Luke. How did I get all the way over there? Okay, so Nehemiah in the New Living Translation, it says, when I heard their complaints, I was very angry. After thinking it over, I spoke out against these nobles and officials. I told them, you are hurting your own relatives by charging interest when they borrow money. Then I called a public meeting to deal with the problem. At the meeting, I said to them, we are doing all we can to redeem our Jewish relatives who have had to sell themselves to pagan foreigners. But you are selling them back into slavery again. How often must we redeem them? And they had nothing to say in their defense. And so, I love how Nehemiah is just, I don't know if I should talk about this now or later. Maybe I should just read it all the way through, come back. I hate to miss my thoughts. So just in case I don't want to miss it later, I will say that I appreciate that Nehemiah, even though he went to Jerusalem to build the wall to help rebuild the wall and facilitate the rebuilding, he has now become like truly a leader. He's truly a leader in the midst. And so much so that the people are coming to him with their complaints, and he's not just doing nothing about it. And I appreciate in verse 7 where it says that he took some time to think about what was said to him. He took a moment after thinking over it. I spoke out against these nobles. So he didn't just go to the leading men and the nobles and say, I heard y'all been mistreating everybody, charging interest and tax, all this extra stuff. He took some time to think. And that's also something that Nehemiah has done previously. Taking time before making decisions. Like when he went out to Jerusalem initially, he went out for 3 days. He was there, and then he went to go walk around. At night, he walked around to see what was going on, excuse me, to see the status, like to survey the land. And he didn't tell anybody while he was doing that. He didn't tell anybody while he was there. He went out first to go look around. And then after he saw for himself and, maybe came to his own conclusions, then he brought it to the leading priests and the nobles and the Jews and said, hey, we have a problem here. And so this is, I'm learning a lot from Nehemiah. Just taking time, using the wisdom that God gives to make good decisions and to know when to make a decision, like the timing, and then how to execute. And so here we see that Nehemiah is thinking about it and then going and saying, hey, boldly approaching the nobles. What y'all doing? Y'all charging your own people. We done already came out of captivity. Now they done already came back from being enslaved captives. And now they're back home and they're still in captivity because they can't even make ends meet because y'all are charging them interest on top of interest. They can't even survive. What are y'all doing? And it ends with saying that the leaders were quiet and had nothing to say. And in the King James Version, it says, in the King James Version, it says, and I said unto them, we after ability have redeemed our brethren Jews, which are sold unto the heathen, and will ye even sell your brethren, or shall they be sold unto us? Then held their peace. Wait, hold on. I gotta read it right, y'all. I'm sorry. It says, then held they their peace and found nothing to answer. And so in all of these translations, it's saying they know they wrong because they can't even find the words to even defend themselves. Terrible. All right, so verse 9 says, then I said, what you are doing, okay, I'm sorry, y'all. Release required, I had nothing to say. Okay, verse 9. Then I said, what you are doing is not right. Don't you fear God? Whew. Don't you fear God? Don't let our foreign enemies shame us. My brothers and my men are also lending money and grain to the people. But stop charging them so much for this. I'm sorry, I'm going to read that again because I got lost. My brothers and my men are also lending money and grain to the people. But stop charging them so much for this. Give back their fields, vineyards, olive trees, and houses right now. Also, give back the extra money you charged, the interest, the 100th part of the money, grain, new wine, and oil. They said, we will give it back and not demand anything more from them. We will do as you say. That was easy. Then I called for the priests and I made the important men and leaders take an oath to do what they had said. Also, I shook out the folds of my robe. I shook out the folds of my robe and said, in this way, may God shake out everyone who does not keep his promise. May God shake him out of his house and out of the things that are his. Let that person be shaken out. And indeed, he is serious about his people. Then the whole group said, amen. And they praised the Lord. So the people did what they had promised. I'm just going to go ahead and read through y'all and come back to this. 14 says, I was appointed governor in the land of Judah in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes. So this is Nehemiah saying that he became governor. It says in the 20th year of the King Artaxerxes' rule. I was governor of Judah for 12 years until his 32nd year. During that time, neither my brothers nor I ate the food that was allowed for a governor. But the governors before me had placed a heavy load on the people. They took about 1 pound of silver from each person, along with food and wine. They were really taxing the people a lot. They were really they were owed a certain amount of food as like governors. Governors had a certain portion that they were owed from the people, like a tax, you know. Um, and then they also got food and wine and silver. That's a lot. That's a lot from people who just came back from captivity. Like, be for real. That's why they were just barely getting by. So it says, the governor's helpers before me also controlled the people, but I did not do that because I feared the Lord, because I feared God. I worked on the wall, as did all my men who were gathered there. We did not buy any fields. Verse 17 says, also I fed 150 Jews. Oh my gosh, my words, y'all. Tonight I'm doing. Let me go back. Verse 17 says, also, I fed 150 Jewish people and officers at my table, as well as those who came from the nations around us. This is what was prepared every day: 1 ox, 6 good sheep, and birds. And every 10 days, there were all kinds of wine. But I never demanded the food that was due a governor, because the people were already working very hard. Remember to be kind to me, my God, for all the good I have done for these people. That is the conclusion of Nehemiah 5. And I'm going to go back. Pretty straightforward, I will say. So Nehemiah, I love to see this. And I'm just gleaning. So Nehemiah has started off as the king's cupbearer in where was he at? Persia. And God laid it on his heart to go to Jerusalem to rebuild the walls and the gates that were burned down, because they were wide open out there, full of shame. And so he went, and he called everyone together. Everyone started working on the wall. Everyone started doing their part. They had a little opposition. They made the adjustments, but they kept working and making progress on the wall. And now Nehemiah has stepped up boldly again to speak up for the people in front of the nobles and the leaders. He don't even live there, but those are his people. He is the people. They are his people as well. And so he had great courage from the Lord. Come on now, to go before them and say, y'all are wrong. Like, because at this point, there's nobody really saying anything, and the people are suffering. They're suffering to the point where they're complaining loudly. And so it's just wonderful to see how Nehemiah's, like, he's just bold. And he's boldly stepping out and saying, y'all are wrong. And he's doing it in the name of the Lord, because he said in verse 9, what y'all are doing is not right. Not because he don't think, not just because his own opinion. Y'all like, man, y'all treating these people wrong. Like, y'all charging all this interest. Like, people are not getting by and having to sell it. Well, yeah. You know, he probably, as a person, it's not okay with that. But we know that he's speaking, like, in terms of doing what's right according to the will of the Lord. He says, what you are doing is not right. Don't you fear God? The first time I read that, I was like, I'm scared. Like, I'm scared. Like, if someone came to me and I know I was doing something wrong, and I'm a believer of God, and they come to me and say, you're doing this, and that. And I know that I'm doing this, and that. And I know it ain't right. Help us, Lord. And then they turn around and say, don't you fear God? I would be shooketh. I would be. I mean, even now I'm like, oof, Lord, help. Because Because don't you fear the Lord? Don't you know what could happen to you? Or honestly, what will happen when you're really coming against the Lord's people, misusing them, mistreating them, overcharging them? These are the Lord's people. You don't fear God? That's probably why they didn't have nothing to say. But he was boldly spoke on behalf of the people, and they were just like, okay, you right. We're gonna do right. We're gonna go ahead and give them. We're gonna give everything. We're gonna give it back. Because Nehemiah told them to give back their fields. They had sold their fields and vineyards and their children. They're selling off stuff. Their people. I mean, their people, their family, trying to get by. And he's telling them, give it all back and give them back the interest. They already paid you for it. Stop charging them interest. That's why they can't get out of this debt, because of all this interest. I'll take that one personally, y'all. Cause could. All right. So I just appreciate just the boldness that Nehemiah displays, and just able to go before these people, leading, people of rank. And he's like, look, y'all don't fear the Lord. So then, of course, he does the robe shaking thing, like shaking out the folds of his robe. Like, may you be shooketh out. If you don't do what you had just said that you're going to do, you just made a promise not to me. Nehemiah is specifying here, may God, in this way, may God shake out everyone who does not keep his promise. He's not saying, oh, you breaking a promise to me. No. He's telling them, you just said that you were going to give them their things back. You're making a promise not to me, but to the Lord. Okay, and guess what? May God shake you upside down. Change running out your pockets. May he do this to you, like shake you out of everything that you have, your house, everything that you own, all of those things that are yours, if you don't do what you promised. And so this is a really serious thing. Like, this ain't Nehemiah you're coming against. You're coming against the God that Nehemiah serves, God, the one true God. Okay, you're coming against him if you're not doing what you promised. And so we see here that not only is Nehemiah bold, he's serious about the Lord. He's serious about the Lord's people, and he's not playing. He is not playing. And so it goes on into that. Of course, they mentioned that they would give all the money, they would give the vineyards and all that stuff back. Then we go on to 14. I was appointed governor in the land of Judah. I'm just amazed. I really am amazed by Nehemiah. Like, I really am amazed, because what started off with just one mission, which it is, has now turned into him advocating for the people, successfully advocating for the people, in the name of the Lord. And now, excuse me, now he's been appointed governor in the land of Judah. Governor. And it says here, I was appointed governor in the land of Judah in the 20th year King Artaxerxes' rule of King Artaxerxes' rule. So if we go back to chapter 1, because I had to go back, I'm like, wait, King 20th year. So in chapter 1, it mentions that in the month of Kislev, in the 20th year, I remember it said 20th year. Let's see what year. I believe it was the same year that he left was the same year that he became governor. Now, I went back to find this, and I should have highlighted it. Yes, sorry, it's chapter 2. It says, it was the month of Nisan in the 20th year Artaxerxes was king. And This is chapter 2, verse 1. And then we get into chapter 5, verse 14. I was appointed governor in the land of Judah in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes' rule. It was the same year, God, y'all. The same year he went there to facilitate, to build, to rebuild, to get the people together, to do this work. And he became governor. That's the Lord. It's the Lord. It's like, oh my gosh, like what? Okay, so I just think that's pretty awesome. But also we know that Nehemiah wasn't just in the governor role just to have the role. He was there. Obviously, he was making a difference and advocating for the people. But he was not there just to do what all the previous governors had done, which was continue to take the portion from the people, even though they knew that they were, struggling. He did not do that. He did not take the portion of food. Now, he probably got his pay because it doesn't specify anything about that. It just says that he never took the food that was owed to the government. Sorry, let me read it right, outright. It says, neither my brothers nor I ate the food that was allowed for a governor. He was allowed that. It wouldn't have been wrong. I'm sorry, y'all. Mark my hand with this pen. He was allowed, a certain portion as governor. That was his right as governor, However, he did not take advantage of that. He did not, he didn't indulge in that at all. He just said, no, I knew that the people needed it. Like, they were already working really hard, trying to make ends meet, trying to eat, trying to survive, trying to live. And so he was this is Nehemiah, y'all. Integral. Okay, man of God. Not going in there, taking advantage of people. And he didn't go into office, into the governing position and forget about the work. Because in verse 15, it says, but I did not do that because I fear God. And that's another reason why he didn't do everything that the other governors were doing. Actually, that's probably the reason why, the number one reason why, because he feared the Lord. He believed God. I fear God. And he knew what the people were going through. And so verse 16, it says, verse 16, it says, I worked on the wall, as did all my men who were gathered there. And so he talks about how he became governor and how he didn't take the food portions and all that. But then he clarifies, I worked on the wall. So this whole time, I'm thinking, Nehemiah is facilitating, he's the leader of the building project and all that, the project manager, if you will. He's also building the wall. He has prioritized this work. So even though he's governor and was governor for 12 years, he was there to build the wall. This is my takeaway, y'all. My takeaway is from this part here, it's just he had a new role. He had new responsibilities in becoming governor. And in verse 17 and onward, it talks about how he had how he fed hundreds of 150 Jewish people and officers at his table. So as governor, you're hosting people, you're hosting dinners, you're hosting guests, and you have to feed those guests. He still didn't take the food from the citizens, but he did have the responsibilities of hosting and doing whatever governors do, all that type of business, and he did. And it speaks to the amount of food and all that he served. And then it said every 10 days there were all kinds of wine. So now he's talking about like I'm still doing what governors do, but I'm not taking from the people. So he's financing it somehow, maybe through his own like pay, or him being the cupbearer of the king of Persia. He probably has lucrative salary as well. We don't know. That's all speculation. But I'm just saying he didn't take from the people, but also he did not get distracted like, or taken, he did not get taken away from doing what he came there to do. Um, and I rested on that. I rested on that because I just started to think about how how busy he would be. Like he would have to have been as governor, and just meeting people and hosting dinners, and having other responsibilities outside of the wall, and and yet he still worked on the wall. Even if he didn't physically work on the wall every day, he made sure that that work was continuing. And um and so I thought about, just in my own personal life, how there are things that I believe, like I know that God has called me to do certain things, positioned me to do certain things. And that can be just as simple as, my job. Like I know that I didn't get myself the job, God got me the job. And so there are responsibilities that I have, more than one. And then for a portion of time, and honestly, I still talk to God about this. And so this is why this is really settled on me. I felt I was going to God, constantly asking God, like, why, like, what do I prioritize? I do ask God that. Like, what do I prioritize? Like, what is the most important thing here? Because I feel like I can't do everything. Like, I can't do everything. And I feel like these are all really important things. But how do I make room for them all? So, which one should I do now? And which one should I do later? Back in the fall, I was really praying, like, okay, God, you want me to do, like, what? I can't do everything. And, this verse reminds me, and I forget how I got to this point, but I realized, oh yes, there's a verse in the Bible. It talks about, it says that the one that says, to whom much is given, much is required. And then it says, like, when you have responsibilities, like, you'll be given even more. Um, I'm short terming that, y'all, but that helped me a lot. I believe it's in Luke. I don't know why I keep referencing Luke and not having the verses to go with it. My apologies, but that really helped me, and this reminded me of that. Like I wrestle with feeling like, I just only want to work on one thing, God. Like I only want one responsibility, just one. And then when I finish this, and when I get this one all the way right, and I can master this thing right here and do this with my eyes closed, then I'll do the other thing you asked me to do, or start working on that project over there. And like I realized, and I've just rested on, just like whatever God asks of me, like God knows my capacity. And it's with like God's strength working in me and His Holy Spirit that will enable me to do whatever it is that He asks me to do. It's not in my own strength. And so God knows. And so here with Nehemiah, like God knows, God knew that he was going out there to build a wall. Maybe Nehemiah did not know that he was going to become governor, and governor for 12 years at that, and then become governor the same year that he went out there just to rebuild the wall, or to help, facilitate the rebuilding of the wall. But it's an added responsibility that he took on, but that he did not allow to overshadow the rebuilding, but also that he was able to do probably reasonably well for 12 years, but he was able to do that and still do the work. So it's okay that he has multiple responsibilities here. I just appreciate that. It gives me a real-time look at what it's like to have major responsibilities. Like rebuilding the wall after it's been torn down is huge. It was a big project. Being governor of Judah is huge. And he was doing both of them. And it's by the grace of God that he would be able to do that. And so he did it. And he did it with the fear of the Lord. I love that. Love that. So yeah, that was one huge takeaway for me when I read this. And just just having the fear of the Lord and allowing that to guide him in doing what's right. Yeah. Even if he had to use whatever his own finances and do what he needed to do, he feared the Lord. And so maybe we all live with that in us. Yeah, something to pray on. But that's Nehemiah 5. Those are the takeaways I had. I think I had one more, but I don't recall what it was at this time. If I remember, I will write it down for next time, God willing. But that's Nehemiah 5. If you have any takeaways, if you read it on your own time or read it in the past and maybe something your memory was jogged, let me know. Write a comment. Let's chit chat, and let's get into chapter 6. I believe, yes, chapter 6 next week. I don't know how far I'm gonna go with Nehemiah. I'm gonna pray on it because I don't know. I'll pray on it and see. But for sure, God willing, next week, chapter 6. If anything changes, I'll let you know. But thanks for watching. God bless y'all, and I hope you have a wonderful night.